Hello, welcome to the Asian Dating Podcast. Today I have my guest, Jaida Pervis. She is the CEO, founder of Flirting with Forever. With over a decade of experience as a certified matchmaker and relationship expert, Jaida is best known for creating compatible pairings and cultivating beautiful relationships. Welcome to the show, Jaida. How are you today?
Hi, I'm wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Sure. Yeah, I'm so excited you can come on the show and share some of your personal experiences with us. I know I have a lot of, I guess, fans or listeners out there who might have been, going through a divorce or gone through a divorce. And I kind of
Yeah.
wanted to touch on a little bit of that. And I figure, why not put a matchmaker in the hot seat where I can just grill them and have them be honest with me. So,
I love it. I love it.
okay, great. So, tell me a little bit about you and, how long you were married for and kind of what led to where you are today. And then we'll ask questions about that. So,
Okay. Um, well, long story, but I am divorced but dating. I met my ex-husband young, I know a lot of people do. I met him at 15. He was my first boyfriend, first love, first like everything. Got married at 20. Although I had my first son at 19, then we had our second son when I was 25, almost 26, and then divorced at 31.
oh,
So it's difficult because we grew up together and just it was very challenging for me going through my divorce with two young kids at the time.
so I mean, he was your first love, right? Your first
Yeah.
everything. I mean, meeting him at 15, getting married at 20, right?
Yes.
That's a lot of experience from 19 having a kid till
Yeah.
now. I mean, they're like two grown men now, like,
I
which is awesome,
know.
right? To be a young mom and
I love it.
yeah. So how did you handle that? How did you handle getting a divorce and then figuring out, okay, when am I going to be ready to date again? Like what are some of the steps that you went through before you figured out, okay, I think I'm going to put my person out there and go after and try to find somebody?
That's a great question. It was hard. I put myself out there a lot sooner than I probably should have. Um, my marriage was challenging in a lot of different ways. He cheated a lot. There was a lot of abuse there. So there was a lot of trauma and things that I needed to heal through in order to be good and healthy in a sense for someone else. But at the time, I didn't know that I needed to heal. So I just wanted to date. I had been with one person since I was 15. And so I'm like, I want to date. Like I'm ready for my forever person. So I was dating, met someone, we lived together. I definitely was not ready to do that. I mean, I was, but I wasn't mentally. And I think that caused a lot of issues with that relationship. So that relationship ended. But I've been through therapy, which is extremely helpful for anyone that is struggling with anything, because I did a lot of, if I would have only done this, or could I have done this, or I should have done this, maybe we could have made it work. Not even paying attention to the abuse side of it, but that was all mental for me. So going through therapy really helps me. I read a lot of books, um, lots of meditation, and therapy. And then I got to a point where I said, I am enough. I'm ready. I am ready. And the second I think my mind shifted, the men were coming, May. Good, healthy, great men. So it was a challenge, but I would not have changed anything.
What age did you go to therapy? Was it right after you got the divorce, or did you
No.
think you can navigate this on your own? And then finally you're like, okay, I need therapy. Like what, tell me about that.
Yeah. We went to therapy together when we were married, but that didn't necessarily work. And then after my marriage, it was probably, I would say maybe about 2.5 years after I divorced and had been in this other relationship and realized I wasn't healed and I wasn't the best partner to the person I was with. So I said, I was like, after talking to my brother and family, and I just was like, this isn't helping me. I need to talk to a professional. So it was probably about 2.5 years after that I decided to go. And I made it a part of my life. So it was very important to me to make sure that I talked to somebody, and it was helpful. It was very beneficial actually to who I am today.
How often did you meet your therapist, and um, how long did you continue seeing your therapist until you stopped?
Every week
Okay.
I saw her. Probably for the first year, it was weekly. And then after that, we tapered off to every other week. And then it would be if I needed her or if I felt certain trigger feelings or things come up, then I would schedule an appointment. But in the very beginning, it was every single week.
And then when did you feel like, okay, I'm at a good place, I could stop seeing her? Like, what made you stop seeing her, and why aren't you seeing somebody still now? Like, why not continue the maintenance, if you will?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I do still talk to someone occasionally now as well, because I think it's important.
Mhm.
Mental health is very important, and maintaining, especially when you've gone through traumatic situations.
Yeah.
So sometimes in my relationship, things do come up that I think, you know what, maybe I should talk to her again about this, because I start to see certain patterns or certain things that I may have done in the past, and I know that's not who I am today. So I do still do checkups or maintenance, as you called it, which I like that. Not as often. It's more so on a need to go basis. But I've honestly been doing it for like 16 years,
Okay.
something like that. So it's been a long time.
Yeah. I must admit that way back when, I don't know, when I was maybe in my 30s or so, I never really thought seeing a therapist or getting therapy was even an answer to anything. Like, I always thought, oh, it's just some people are just so dramatic. They just need to go to a therapist, or it's, living in LA, it's like a popular thing to do is like have a therapist or whatever that may be. But my mind absolutely changed when I had a panic attack when I was in Vietnam. And I don't even know why. I was on vacation. So I'm like, why am I having a panic attack? So weird. So when I came back to the US is when I thought, okay, with EAP, with my work, I have an opportunity to go to some therapy sessions, and the insurance covers it or work covers it. And I went to 2 sessions and I thought, wow, this is really helpful because you can actually talk to somebody in a neutral way where they're not subjective, their opinions, like it's not your friend just saying, oh, you got this, everything will be okay. Or, your friends giving you try to be helpful advice, but they're not a therapist, right? So
Yeah.
I really thought that was helpful. It really changed my mind that it is beneficial, and it can be very, very helpful, just talking it out loud with somebody, or
Yes.
just having someone else's point of view. So, I mean, I come from an Asian household. It's not like my parents ever went to,
A therapist.
therapy, or it's like almost a stigma, right, in my
Yeah.
culture and stuff. So it was really hard to accept that. But once I experienced it, I was like, huh, this is really beneficial. I'm a fan, I would totally seek help that way. So yeah.
Well, it is. It's very taboo. I'll say back in the day, um, people always associated therapy with like craziness,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um, and so no one wanted to talk about it.
Right.
I even struggled in the very beginning telling friends and family, oh, I'm seeing a therapist,
Yeah.
because you think, what are they going to say? Are they going to judge me? Are they going to think I'm out of control? Are they going to think the marriage was my fault? Like, you go through those crazy thoughts. So I think then it wasn't talked about.
Right.
And I love the fact that it's become so important now, because it's necessary, especially when you're dealing with divorce and there's kids involved. I would never knock therapy ever. I tell everyone you should go. Even if you think you're okay, there's still certain things that you can talk to people about.
What are your thoughts when, as matchmakers, we talk to a lot of people and we come across a lot of singles? What are your thoughts if somebody says, you know what, my husband and I, or my boyfriend and I, are going to therapy to see if we can make our relationship work? And I mean, do you think, gosh, you're going to therapy before you even get married? Like, you're relationship is doomed? Or do you think, okay, that's good. It's a good neutral place to iron out everything before you get married and then find out you don't get along and then you have kids involved and get a divorce? Like, what are your
Yeah.
thoughts on going to see a therapist before, like for pre-marriage situations?
Yeah. Yeah. I honestly, I would suggest it because relationships, dating, marriages can be very tricky. It can be very, very tricky. So I think to talk about some of the hard topics up front in an open forum where you're not being judged
Yeah.
and where you have someone, not necessarily a mediator, but someone that can help you work through those and give you coping skills and ways to communicate better, I say go for it. I am all 100% for it because it's helpful
Right.
versus the at the end when your marriage could be ending and falling apart and then you want to try to go.
Right.
That's, that makes it
Yeah.
hard.
It's kind of like, I don't go to church, I'm Buddhist, but churches, right? They have where before you get married, you do some counseling sessions, right?
Yeah.
Before you get
Yeah.
married. Like, I could totally see that being beneficial. I mean, I've been with my husband 15 years and we've
Oh,
been together for 5 years. We've been married for five, but things still creep up. Even we've been
yeah.
together 15 years, things are still popping up where you're like, oh shit, we should have talked about that 15 years ago. So it could have been
Exactly.
grandfathered in or whatever. Like, just things like that. I see it being very, very helpful. But I think therapy is more accepting for women versus men. Like, I
And
hardly
yeah,
see men go and say, oh, I'm going to go to a therapist. I mean, good for them if they do. But what are your thoughts on that?
I would agree, especially people of color. I think it's very not spoken about with men. And to hear a man say, oh, I'm seeing a therapist or I'm talking to someone about XYZ. It's almost shocking at
Yeah.
times because we're like, what? Which is crazy because it's expected of women to do it. But if a man is struggling with something, it's not as accepted. But again, I mean, I'm totally for it. I wish more people and more men had not necessarily a safer space, but a better platform to discuss it. And I wish it was received better because then I think more men would do it. If you have, like, you talk with your girlfriends and you could say, my therapist said blah 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 blah, it's fine. But if
Right.
a man goes to his guy friends and says, well, I was talking to my therapist, then they're looked at like, what do you see it? What, you're a man, you shouldn't see a therapist. But so I think if it was more accepted
Yeah.
and men talked about it more, I think more men would go because it's life changing, especially if you find a good therapist.
Right. Maybe in 20 years, because wasn't online dating not accepted,
Not
right, 20
accepted.
years ago, but now
Yeah.
it's so acceptable in today's day and age, and Matchmaker is not so widespread or
Yeah.
acceptable. So maybe in 20 years it would be
I
like,
hope
oh
so.
yeah, I just talked to my matchmaker. Like, it's something you say in the passing, right? Like, it's totally
Right.
fine.
Like it's
So
totally fine. And that's the thing. It's okay for women, but I've heard maybe 4 men in my life say, "Oh, I was talking to my therapist." And I know many men that could use therapy, but it's just not
right.
it's, it's just not accepted.
So let me ask you, Jada, after you went to therapy for, you said about 1 year
Yep.
consistently, and then you tapered off a little bit, what are some things you learned? And I know all relationships are different, all marriages are different, but for you personally, if you don't mind,
Yeah.
what are like some tidbits that you learned that is not widely known for people who just come out of a divorce? Like, what are some things that maybe you can share with the listeners?
Yeah. The biggest takeaway that I have is healthy communication, and to use my voice. In my marriage, didn't. I didn't discuss if my feelings were hurt. I didn't talk about, if he did something wrong or cheating, for example, which it's very difficult to come back from, and he cheated many times. I don't think I communicated effectively how it affected me. It was almost kind of pushed under the rug. Um, so I think healthy communication is key because you have to be able to communicate with one another. That's the biggest tip I even give to clients I work with. If you can't communicate or you feel uncomfortable communicating or you feel that your needs won't be received well, it's not the relationship's not going to work. So that was the biggest thing that I learned. was how to communicate effectively and not to be afraid to share how I really feel. If I don't, now I'm not aggressive saying, oh, I don't like this. Like, I'm not like that, but I can say, you know, this makes me uncomfortable, or I feel that this isn't making me happy, or, you know, I know how to talk about it differently. And I think with anybody, that's the biggest thing that you can learn is how to communicate healthy. That's going to make or break your relationship.
Are those some of the leading ways of communicating, by saying, this isn't making me comfortable? Or
Yeah.
what are some of those key phrases that you
I
use
feel is
day
a
to
huge
day?
one.
Oh, what's that?
I said, I feel, that's a big one. You have to be able to say, I feel that when you do this, it makes me sad, or I feel like you being late for date night hurts my feelings.
Right.
You have to be able to that's the biggest one that I always use is I feel, because
Okay.
people don't know. If you just say, I didn't like that you did this.
Uh-huh.
Well, that's not really sharing how you felt about it. You're saying you just didn't like something, but that's not saying, I feel that when you didn't show up, I'm unimportant, or I feel that when you didn't call me back, I'm not a priority. So that's the biggest and strongest, most effective word I think to use.
I
Um,
feel blah, blah,
I
blah.
feel,
Okay. Oh, good
I
one.
feel blah,
Okay.
blah, blah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So I'll remember that. So
You
if,
try it and let me know.
yeah. So if my husband does something that I don't like, for example, if I ask him to do something and he hasn't done it, I don't know, a few days later, I could say, I feel that when I ask you to do something and you don't do it, it makes me feel like I'm not important. Like that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I
Okay.
feel that when I asked you to take out the garbage and it didn't get done, that I'm not being heard.
Okay. Good,
Yeah.
good. These are good exercises. And I think we kind of know we should say that, but for us to say it out loud and
Yeah,
practice
that's
it
hard.
and role playing it, I think it's going to give us more power, right? It's more empowering. So
Absolutely. Well, because it
good.
took me a long time. It took me a long time to get comfortable saying it because I never really talked about my feelings.
Do you use those words of communication like that with your clients? Like, I feel when I'm giving you
Absolutely.
advice, you know, like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I use them with my clients. I use them with my kids. I mean, my kids are grown-ups now, but I will still say to them, and I even said when they were younger, I feel when I'm asking you to come straight home after track practice, that you're disregarding my rules. You're not paying attention to my rules.
Right.
So I use it with everybody,
Yeah.
honestly.
Right. It's just your natural way of communicating now, right?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
okay,
Now
good.
it is. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. That's one tip. What else? What other tip can you give?
Well, communication is the biggest one. And we're talking about tips from my therapist.
Yeah. What you learned from your therapist that you can apply to your day-to-day life that has helped you over the years.
Meditation.
Okay.
My therapist talked to me about meditation the very first, maybe it was like the second or third session that I went when I was going through my divorce. And I thought it was the craziest thing because my mind is always going. So to sit in stillness, I don't do that well. Well, I didn't. I do it much better now. But even when you're having feelings of hurt or feelings of anxiety or feelings of sadness, to put on meditation music and really just sit and be still and center, and whether you use a specific word or a specific affirmation, that has literally changed my life, and it's changed how I manage relationships because it makes me calm. I start the day with it, and I tell you what, I always know when I didn't meditate because my energy is off. And it's just because I didn't start the day the way I typically do. Like this morning, for example, I definitely didn't meditate and could have because everything that's going on. But I would say meditation is huge. That's another big one. And you have to, even if you start with 5 minutes
Yeah.
at a time, set a timer, set the timer on your phone. That's how I started. And you just have to kind of zen yourself out and try not to think, I've got to pay this bill, I've got to match this client, I've got to do this, I've got to respond to that. I mean, it takes a lot. It's a practice to
Yeah.
get clear, but when you do, it changes relationships and changes your life.
Good, good. I agree. I used to not be able to meditate at all. Even like 5 minutes, I'd be like, oh my gosh, this app is like, I can't even
Yeah.
sit down and stop thinking. But I think what also helped me when I first started meditating is just be in a dark room and something comfortable, make sure my dogs are let out, make sure no one's
Yep.
going to interrupt me. Even though I could hide in the basement, I feel like it's better when I know like no one's around and I can just have those extra 15 minutes. I mean, there's a time when I would meditate like an hour, 15 minutes, and now I do 15 minutes daily. But yeah, I agree. It's just sets the
I love
tone for
that.
your day. Sometimes I don't do it in the morning, so I do it at night before I go to bed. But it is
Yeah.
calming for
And
me. And yeah, I
well,
agree.
for us as matchmakers, we have so many conversations with so many different people a day that we take on a lot of different emotions and we take on a lot of people's energy. So it's important to start your day with clear presence and to be at peace, because we hear a lot and we take on a lot, and that can affect our happiness as people as well, because we hear so many different things each day.
Yeah, yeah. I have a friend who meditates, and she says as she's meditating, her thoughts will go to like a to-do list, like, oh shit, I need to do this.
Yep.
And she'll just open her eyes and write it down really quick and
Oh,
then
that's good.
resume and then just resume. And then if something else pops in, just write it down real quick. So then you just put it away, like compartmentalize,
Compartmentalize. Yeah.
compartmentalize. I always have trouble with that word. I don't even know why. It's kind of like when people have trouble saying aluminum or something. But
Right.
anyway,
Right.
um,
That's actually a really good idea, because when you write it down, it disappears. You no
right,
longer think about it. Yeah. I
right.
like that. I
So,
like
what else? What's one last tip that you thought,
that.
okay, this is really helpful for me, after going through therapy for a year? Like what, one last thing you could share with us?
I would say, God, there's so many tips. Another key phrase that my therapist told me is to not take life in a sense too seriously, right? Everything is not a bomb blow up. If something is minor, I have to not think, okay, well, this didn't get done, but the world is going to end.
Right.
So just to take it as it comes and to be present. And I suffer a lot from that. I was never present. I was always going, 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 going. So
Yeah.
just not to take things too seriously. Everything will be fine, and be present.
Right. I agree. I agree. Not
Yeah.
take things too seriously. I mean,
Yeah,
there's so many more important things out there, I feel like, than just
exactly.
stressing out about the little stuff. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I
And
like that.
gratitude. You have to be grateful. I mean, I could say, you know what, I don't know, I missed the light and now I'm stuck here and I have somewhere to be. But then I think about the people that don't have a car to get anywhere, to get to where they need to be. So, I mean, there's things are just not that serious. And that's the mindset that I have to have. It's just really not that serious.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like in every situation, it could be worse, right? Like every
Absolutely.
situation, it yeah, I totally agree, being
Yeah.
grateful. And I'm in like this coaching group, and our Friday challenge is to let 5 people know that you're grateful for them and what you
Oh,
appreciate
I love
about
that.
them. And that's been really fun. I've been doing it for, I don't know, for a couple months now. And yeah, sometimes I might have a repeat person for that weekend because I forget that I've already
Yeah.
appreciated them a month ago. But I
You
mean,
can never have that.
who doesn't like to hear that they're appreciated, that they're being appreciated, right? I mean, I don't feel like men get a whole lot of compliments or a lot of appreciation that way. Like girls were always throwing out compliments to each other and, "Oh my gosh, I love
Absolutely.
you. Oh my gosh, that's such a beautiful dress. Oh my gosh, you look
Yes. I love those
amazing."
earrings. Yeah.
Right. But guys don't get a lot of that. And I'm sure guys don't get a lot of people telling them that they're appreciated. And guys have more trouble telling people they appreciate somebody. So
Yeah.
that's been really interesting. But
Yeah.
yeah, like that gratitude part is huge. I mean,
Yeah.
I know a lot of people have
Oh,
gone
I
through
do have one more
a lot of
tip.
stuff. Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
thought of one more thing. Journaling. That's what I was going to say. I started journaling back when I first started therapy, and game changer as well. I have almost every journal I think that I've done, and to go back and read where you are
Yeah.
versus where you were. Oh, it's so powerful. It's so powerful. And it's such a release when you can see the growth that
Yeah.
has happened. It's a release to see the growth in your relationships, the growth in you as a person. So I journal. I try to journal every single day. And I tell you what, when I look at some of my journal entries from last year versus where I am today, it's like, wow.
You've
Wow,
grown as a
I've
person.
grown.
So let me ask you this, after the therapy and all that, and obviously you'll forever be tied with your ex-husband because of the boys.
Yeah.
How's your relationship now with your ex-husband? Like, has it gotten better because you've grown as a person or you're more accepting? Like, how does that helped with your previous partner?
That's another great question. We did not have, it was years but before we spoke. And even to this day, I have very limited communication with him, but I have forgiven him for a lot of the things that he did. So I don't have that anger anymore. So he's has not changed much, and I don't know that he will.
Yeah.
But I've forgiven him, and I think that that has helped because I was angry for a lot of years, and once I decided to release that anger and that frustration, and just I sent him love and light, and I wish him the best. But for me and my life and my growth and my energy, I just we don't talk often. It's just not good. But again, I mean, he's the father of my children, so
Right.
he did give me two incredible humans, which I'm thankful for.
Yeah.
But I just protect my peace in a sense that he is not a part of that.
Okay. So you guys don't really need to talk to each other
No,
anymore, right? Because the kids are all grown
yeah,
up and
they're
yeah.
grown. But even when they were little boys, when I first got divorced, he left. He was
Yeah.
angry that I chose to file for divorce, so he
Right.
took that out on my sons, which, when you have two young men who need that male father figure, and then you go from having him there to then not talking to him, they probably didn't talk for like 14 years.
Wow.
And so now as they're older and he wants to establish a relationship, they really don't, because they remember life with me and some of the struggles that I went through as a single parent.
Mhm.
So it's challenging, but it's I'm trying to get them to be a little bit more open,
Yeah.
because they're older now and they should be a little bit more open.
So one last thing before we
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
What are some of your advice you can give to women out there who are getting a divorce, going through a divorce, or just came out of a divorce? Like what are some of your matchmakers' best dating tips for them as their friend and matchmaker?
Yeah. I will say it gets better. Sometimes in the very beginning, it seems like it's the hardest thing ever, but it does get better. Um, and you'll meet your person, but you will only meet your person when you have healed the pain that you went through in your divorce. So it's not healthy to get into a relationship right after a divorce because you haven't done the work that's necessary. I always advise that you should wait. Some people, depending on if there was trauma or what happened in their marriage, some people should wait a year. Some people it's 6 months, depending on how it ended. But you definitely want to make sure that you do the work and invest in yourself first, and make sure that you love yourself 150% in order to be loved for that next person that you're going to meet.
Are there like support groups? Like what do you Google to get that kind of support? Or should everyone get a private therapist? Or do you know of any group
You
support?
know, That's a good question. I have seen, and I've actually had some of my clients talk about different meetup groups. I know meetups have been around forever,
Okay.
but they do have divorced single women meetup groups. They do some. I have a gentleman that I'm working with, and he actually leads a men's kind of
Oh,
support group
yeah.
where it's men who have recently gone through divorce, and they just kind of lean on and support each other. And I'm gonna say it's always therapy. Now, not everybody wants to do a therapist, but I think it's very important to make sure that you talk to someone.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I always think when couples go out on dates and if one person asks the other, like, oh, tell me about your ex-husband, ex-wife.
Yeah,
And if that person can't say, gosh, you know what? I wish my ex well and it didn't work out with us, but
yeah,
yes, we've gone through a lot, but I wish them well. Like if you're not at that point where you can wish someone well or it could be neutral, then probably you're not ready to date. If someone is
right.
still bashing their ex on a date, it's like, oh my gosh, there's still all this stuff
Absolutely.
that you haven't worked out yet. So maybe that's a sign. I mean, I've not gone through a divorce, so I can't say, but based on feedback I get from other couples, I'm like, man, you're still talking about your ex awful lot. I don't think you're quite over him or her.
Yeah,
Everything is still raw. Like maybe dating is not the time right now, but maybe getting a date coach or a relationship coach or a therapist might be the better answer. So,
absolutely. Absolutely. And who wants to hear about it when you're going to meet someone new?
right.
That's a complete turnoff. You
I
should
know.
never talk about your ex in the very beginning. So if you have to still do that, then you're not healed.
Right. Right. No ex talk, no
No, no,
politics, no sex
no,
talk,
no
no
religion, no, none of
religion, right?
that.
Okay, okay. Jada, real quick, tell us about how someone can find you if they want to
Yeah,
work with you, and just a quick snippet about what you do and what kind of clients you're looking to work with.
absolutely. So my website is www.iamflirtingwithforever.com. Instagram is at JadaP_matchmaker. I work with successful singles in general, mainly on the East Coast. I work with people of color, so please come and find me. And I am happy to coach you through your next relationship. I'm happy to be your matchmaker and get you to that next relationship. So yeah, that's it.
Okay, well, thank you, Jada. All the info will be in the show notes. And I just want to say, have a great rest of your day and good seeing you.
You too.
And,
Thank you so much
yeah.
for having me. I really appreciate it.
Okay, I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.